news. The new car for this season for the Sim Racing League for drivers 60 years of age or older. And we're at one of the most famous, historical and exciting racetracks anywhere in the world. It's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 2 races of 60 plus racing adventures coming up here on RaceSpotTV. David Haynes with Will Chadwick and Ikumetakala. We're excited this season, Will, to have this new car, the F3 car, in 60 plus racing adventures.
Yes, we are, and we're at the halfway point of the season. We've got some wonderful racing at a circuit that I feel like goes a little bit underappreciated because of the history with the issues with F1, and I just don't feel like there's much racing here. Maybe that's just my European brain being a bit stupid. But yeah, halfway point of the season, beautiful F3 action, and here is where we are at the season.
That's right, it all kicked off at Hockenheim on the Grand Prix circuit, December 13th, and then they went to Mount Panorama Circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, Road Atlanta and Silverstone. Here we are on the Indianapolis road course for another round broadcast live on RaceSpotTV. And Mugello, Imola, Sebring, Zandvoort, Ulten Park International, no chicanes. And Interlagos, February 28th, which is not the last day of the month this year, but you'll see that live on RaceSpotTV when that rolls around as well. So wherever you're watching, do subscribe. We're getting now into this round 6 from Indianapolis on the road course, and yes, season 29 of 60 plus racing adventures, a great little community, and they've gone from strength to strength in this new season with this new car. Greg Seitz looks to be absolutely on the money. From Ragnar Wisloff, John Morgan, Gerhardus Jorrison, Mike Grandy, Barry Hills, Russ Addy, Peter Holstrom, Eugene Clark, and Mike McCormick as the top 10 as they run so far this season. And so qualifying's underway at the moment. And then we get into race number 1. There's 2 races tonight, and each of them have their own qualifying session attached.
Yeah, and at the minute, at the top of the times is Ragnar Wisloff, and Greg Seitz is yet to complete his lap. He's currently on his first flying lap as that time tower gets itself sorted in the top left, and we'll get to see those times for you. But yes, I can confirm, there you are, Wisloff on pole at the minute by just under 0.2 of a second. Here is Seitz's first effort. We do expect this to be slower because we do know in this F3 car the tyres take a bit to warm up, and he might not quite have had the grip on this first lap. Almost though, enough to go second, and it's one flying lap to get pole position for Seitz.
So in a couple of opportunities at flying laps, Greg Seitz gets just a little bit of the curb through the first chicane. Very quick on the exit of the second, flat out through turn 3 here, and he's looking for where to turn in to turn 4 here to carry speed out of here, and then you get another quick chicane on this modern layout, which is absolutely flat out in a car like this, and then down the back straight. Not too many corners left to go in this lap. They are pretty quick around here on this shortened version of the road course, up in the top gear and looking for his braking zone at the end of the straight. Now another sequence of little S's, might have gotten in there just a little bit deep, but now trying to carry and float the speed through this part.
Definitely a little bit offline through those S's, like David mentioned. Want to have been cutting those curbs a little bit more. The curbs are so flat around here, you can really use them through those types of sections. Into the final section here of the lap, clips that curb beautifully on the inside, and round to the final proper corner on the circuit, nicely over the inside. Uses all of the exit, and now it's keeping it tight to the line. Don't let the car get away from you. Cut it close, run up against the wall, and that is going to be a lap and maybe pole position.
Still needs to find that 10th and a half, and he does over his previous lap to go up top ahead of Ragnar Wisloff. A lap just good enough there on his final attempt for Greg Seitz. The only other drivers left out on track. Peter Holstrom, I think, has completed his laps and is still just circulating around. Everyone else has had their 2 flying laps, except Bobby Love, who might have had an issue on his second flying lap. Is Peter Holstrom still just taking in a little bit of the circuit?
Well, it's always good to get a little bit of practice in. If you've got a bit of time, it can get you acclimatized to what the conditions are really going to be like at the start of race number 1 here this evening. Do remember, we have 2 races, I believe, this evening, and there is no mandatory pit stop. There is sometimes mandatory pit stops in this league, and we will have it for the final round on February the 28th, but there is no mandatory pit stop tonight.
So a very competitive looking qualifying session sets the grid for the 19-lap race coming up. And Greg Seitz will be very pleased with his efforts in that qualifying, but what a competitive front row between Seitz and Wislaw. They've each had a little bit of back and forth so far this season. Ragnar Wislaw, a multiple times champion, but Greg Seitz showing that he's one of the quickest drivers in 60 plus over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and like you say, he came in kind of... do you know what? I can't remember these days. I feel like it was halfway through last season, because last season's champion was Rosadi, am I correct? Top of my head? I think so. But yeah, we know Seitz came in. There you go. See, it just, the days go by so fast these days. So Seitz was last season's champion, but in that season 27, we did see Seitz come in and kind of start to dominate and kind of show what he had possible. And one-time champion looking to go for a 2-time and catch up and maybe even get onto that little leaderboard we have there of our multiple champions.
Could happen. Let's look at the grid. Race number 1, Greg Seitz on that pole position from Ragnar Wislaw, as we talked about, but then behind them, row 2 is John Morgan and John Payne, and then Paul Stump and Mike McCormick on row number 3. Very Swedish-looking row number 4 there, I think, with Leif Hellberg and Ulf Olsen, and Peter Hallström and Gerhardus Jorrison on row 5. Row 6 is Randy Shoemake and Mike Grandy. And then Greg Gilman and Barry Hills, the row behind that. Eugene Clark and Russ Addy a little deeper in the field than we might expect. Bill Smitham and Bobby Love alongside each other, 17th and 18th. Bruce Poole and Richard Coulomb for a Canadian row 10 there. And then Douglas Beasley, Earl Setzer, JC Hay, David Bradley, Franz Josef, Jerry Kerr in 26th.
So then, excited to get this race underway. We've got a full pace car lap for these drivers to get those tyres a little bit up to temperature. It's not going to be an hour 30, do not worry. It will be 19 laps. But we got a full pace car lap. The drivers are going to be able to get those cars just a little bit up to temperature, because like we've mentioned, these tyres, the tyre model in the F3 car, just needs that bit more of energizing. It actually improves a lot across the course of the stint, where we see tyres such as the GT3 tyre model be more peaky. They start very strong, and you kind of have to hold on to them across the course of a run. But drivers are going to have plenty of time to get some temperature into the brakes, into the tyres, on this rolling pace car lap. It's rare that you see a full pace car lap these days, but an interesting sight.
So the weather conditions, just a little bit before 10 a.m. in Indianapolis. 20 Celsius in the air, 24 on the track. Sun peeking in and out of the clouds as it's partly cloudy. There are some blue patches in the sky, but also a few rather dark looking clouds. Hey, now I know what the Finnish word for April is.
Ah, yes, we always get the Finnish names. This is really good. You actually learn a lot here. We're actually performing a little bit of an educational series where we teach you the several Finnish names of months. And there you go. I can't say that, and I'm not going to attempt to say it because I'm sure Iku, our wonderful producer, will hate me afterwards. So I'm just going to leave it, and you can read it and interpret it how you like.
I believe it's pronounced Koti Pizza.
That's definitely not how it's pronounced. Oh, my word.
So that'll be one of the key overtaking opportunities there both into turn number 1, but also the end of that back straight. Probably the two best places to pass the F3 car. It gets a little bit of a slipstream going on, so certainly if you're close, exiting the chicane there, or exiting the final corner onto the pit straight to cross the famous yard of bricks, those are the places where you're going to be able to get a good run and then challenge into the big braking zones of this road course. Most of the way around the formation lap at the moment, and that Porsche pace car will show us where the pit entry is should they need it. Our leaders won't, but if you pick up some damage, which happens easily on an open wheel car, then you might need it.
Yeah, and like you say, a brief mention of that toe is it's very powerful when you are close. It's an aggressive toe curve, if much. You know, like when you have GD4s and GD3s, they have rather consistent toes, but this car has a very, very aggressive toe.
We'll see that play out when we get green flag racing momentarily. 19 laps of the road course of Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 60-plus racing adventures. Greg Seitz on the pole, puts the power down and roars them onto the pit straight, across the yard of bricks, heading down towards turn number 1. A few drivers caught just a tiny bit napping there on that race start. Greg Seitz, no problems for him though. No problems for Ragnar Wisloff either. And there's some moves happening between McCormick and Stump, I think, on the way into turn 1. Will, still no tyre temperature as John Payne spins around.
Yeah, still no time temperature for your drivers here as we start this opening lap. Seitz leads by 0.6 of a second as we head on for the first time to our back straight section of this circuit. A couple spinners in the background and a big gap opening up, at least between McCormick and John Morgan, the ever the consistent, always getting on that podium is John Morgan. It's really going to be a test here of can Wisloff hold on. Initially though, you must say that that opening lap from Seitz has been very, very fast.
Yeah, absolutely textbook. Good race start and just smooth from there on out, and we get a bit of a top 3 breakaway. Breaking away from John Morgan just a tiny bit. Paul Stump and Mike McCormick trade places, and Eugene Clark is off the road, so it's behind the first couple of cars where all the drama's been happening. Leif Hellberg also dropping down the order. Here's Stump running a bit wide, getting a bit of a slide on. McCormick now to run close with him. Ulf Olsen, the driver behind that, and then Gerhardus Jorrison, a few positions gained into 7th. You got Mike Grandy, Barry Hills and Russ Addy also all gaining spots. Addy has gained 6 spots on the opening lap. But we have a battle once again. McCormick looking to get 4th place back off of Paul Stump. Side by side, breaking down in towards turn number 1. Inside line's the place to be, but around the outside, super brave. Paul Stump gets it back.
Fantastic move there from Paul Stump, and like you mentioned, Russ Addy is trying to make the move on these opening laps, up from 16th to 10th, your season 27 champion. Making a few moves in these opening stages. You would expect him to do so, considering he would be considered to be a little bit out of position.
What flavour of Red Bull is he representing there? Not sure I've seen that one in 7-Eleven stores here. He's up behind, but this car's off the road in front because Barry Hills and Russ Addy have come. Sorry, not Russ Addy, he's still racing. Someone else is off the circuit, Mike McCormick. 2 drivers have come together in front. Russ Addy picks up a couple more free positions.
Yeah, McCormick's had a huge issue there, and I'm trying to pick out who else has had an issue. It looks like Olsen has had an issue as well, so I'm sure that our fabulous producer will get us a replay of that in not too long time, but I guess maybe a move down into that really heavy braking zone after the longest straight we get at the start of the lap. And as Seitz sets the fastest lap, a little bit of carnage going on for that top 10 situation.
Yeah, some contact going on. So having a look into turn number 1 and then round the outside there was John Payne, and then he was just a bit too eager with the throttle with a tight line through turn number 2, and that cost him a couple of positions, but he managed to spin off into relative safety.
Yeah, so
unlucky in 8th place.
Yeah, like you say, it's really hard to actually sometimes, especially on these opening laps. You know, he's pulled off a really good move and just got on the power a little bit too early. That rear stepped around and he's lost the car. These cars are very, very hard once you've gone over like 10 degrees of slip angle, and trust me, these things are not easy to drive no matter what setup you put them on. And all your drivers here this evening above the age of 60, but driving probably better than you can in your Vauxhall Corsa.
Now here's a replay of what happened at the end of the back straight. It looks like Olsen getting in too deep there in the 70, making contact. They both run off the track, but it started with Olsen maybe just missing his braking zone, tagging Mike McCormick, who lost a handful of spots after that, and potentially some damage for either or both of them. No, not...
Oh. Yeah, there's damage now. There's definitely damage to the number 99 car, and he's had to pit. So got away scot-free initially, but then he turned it into the Porsche 9X8, and yeah, that's not gonna be working very well for him. So really unfortunate for McCormick. We saw him having really good pace at the start of this race and in qualifying, but he's gonna have to regroup himself and do a little bit of damage limitation, ready for race number 2.
Makes Russ Addy the biggest move of this race so far, 9 positions gained, starting from 16th on the grid, now up into 7th. It's Bill Smithams and John Payne, I think, just trying to make some moves in the background there in behind Bobby Love.
Looking a little bit further back to Eugene Clark, number 73 car is just kind of trying his very, very best to get the car ahead of him, and it's hard around here to follow at certain points in time, because there can be quite a lot of dirty air, especially through those medium sort of speed sections. And when you're as close as Clark is at the moment, it can sort of mess you up a little bit. Heard a bit of an apology over the team chat from Randy Shoemate. He might have had an issue dropping down a few places this lap at least, so potentially a little bit of contact going on there, and it looks like one of our F3 cars is sporting no nose cone.
No nose at all. How does he smell?
With his tongue.
A snake. Okay, yeah. So drivers, for how flat and relatively simple on paper this track looked, struggling. I think it was Gilman who maybe got in too hot and made contact with Randy Shoemake. And I think that was the radio message you heard.
And it's going to be really hard for Gilman to do anything now. We've got the replay here. So you're watching Randy Shoemake minding his own business, and the 92 of Greg Gilman is just behind him. So as we go into this heavy braking zone, as you come off a little bit of the banking, just misjudges it and gets into the back of Randy. Apologises over the radio, and it looks like Randy has definitely come off the best of the 2 cars there, and unfortunately that will ruin Gilman's race and has definitely set Shoemake back. Looking at Russ Addy, who is up 7, well, he's in 7th position. He's up a lot more than that after starting 16th, so almost up 10 in that, what we're going to deem raspberry-flavoured Red Bull car. Quite a nice livery, actually. Has a lot of nice little accents to it, and he's going to be looking to make the move on Mike Grandy, who having a little few internet blinks here and there. But as you can see, when you come into one of those really hard, heavy braking zones, it's so easy to lock an inside front wheel here. The way that these cars work is, as you decelerate, you lose a lot of that aerodynamic downforce, and it just ends up meaning that the pressure you can brake at initially, when you've got all of that aero load, is suddenly a lot lower. So people tend to brake up, lock up in the last phase of braking of this car.
I think we're looking at a Red Bull the Purple edition.
It's like a testing livery that they used to do, you know, when back in the day,
definitely
when they had the red one.
They had the black and white testing livery, and this is like filling in the white with purple.
I love it personally, and I'm absolutely digging this livery for Russ Addy.
putting a bit of pressure on here. He braked a little earlier than the driver in front, who ran a little bit wide, and so Ross Addy gets a good exit, but it's the exit from here that's absolutely critical, and you can, from on board, maybe get just a little bit of an idea of the dirty air. That helped Addy a little bit wide. He's trying to size up Mike Grandy here. He pulls out filtering relatively early, and Mike Grandy rolls out of the throttle. Ross Addy rolls up to 6th place. 10 positions gained in this race.
10 positions up, and Addy is still on a mission. It's realistic for him to be able to get a top 5 here with Hardus Jorgensen not too far ahead. The number 966, we've seen many times, is up 5 places himself, but is unlikely to be able to fend off the challenge of Russ Addy in the next coming laps. We are 7 laps down, about to start our 8th for your leader, who has started a little bit of an extended lead now at 3 seconds, so definitely got the controlling stake over this at the moment.
It's looking good, strength to strength for Greg Seitz as he pulls a little bit away from Ragnar Wisloff. John Morgan just a couple seconds behind that as well. Been caught potentially by Paul Stump, but it's Russ Addy making all the moves inside of the top 10 of late. Until now, as Ulf Olsen has a little bit of a look at Leif Hellberg, but was nowhere near close enough just yet.
Speaking of people that are making moves, John Payne is starting his little comeback. Started on 4th position on the grid. He's in 12th at the moment, and as you can see, got a car pretty close behind him of Bill Smithen, the 255, but the number 2 is going to be keeping his eyes looking forward and trying to make sure that he can fend off Smithen for the time being, but also gain on that top 10 pack that we were just looking at with Ulf Olsen in it. Slow section here of the track. It's very tricky to understand kind of how to set up a car and also generate the grip in such a car that has such high aerodynamical downforce. It's amazing when you start to push a car like this how much you can really gain from just carrying that little bit more entry speed, that 5% more. You have that 2% more grip, and it just makes things that little bit easier. But when you take all the aero load off, like in turn number 1, you can see the car squirming away. The car of Peter Holstrom, also starting inside the top 10 at the start of this race, has dropped out of it at the moment, and it looks like Addy's off. Addy is off, has had some collision. His car looks relatively undamaged from a brief look, but oh, and that's a huge incident. Behind Addy, Smitham has gone to take avoidance, and unfortunately has felt the wrath of the curbs.
You're talking about the curbs are pretty flat most of the way around here. Well, there's sort of 2 or 3 places they're not. That's one of them. And Bill Smitham has been launched over and across it. And Russ Addy is no longer Mr. Plus 10 as he's dropped from 6th back down to 12th place. Right through the gravel on the outside of turns 3 or 4 is where he was off in the gravel.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be interesting to get a couple replays of that. Of course, we saw the incident with Smitham live. We're going to get the incident of Addy. Looks to be by himself, so potentially self-inflicted. Clips the grass. Oh, so easy to do, and to be honest, recovers it fairly well. I thought he lost a little bit more time than that, but I guess the time in the gravel really did slow him down. And as you watch him rejoin, it's not really anything he does, it's just what Smitham tries to do and tries to carry that extra speed to be able to make a move on Addy, which unfortunately takes a risk just a little bit too far.
So just past the halfway point of the race now, leader starting lap 10, all of these drivers on lap 10 here of this 19-lap race 1 of 60-plus racing adventures from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think it was Bobby Love who went way off track in the background there.
Potentially. I'm not too sure. He's actually in the pit lane now, so that would make your statement probably correct. Just having a little look of it, it looks like we also had a similar incident to what Smitham had. And yeah, just
Bobby Love is, of course, what NWA would have called their song if they were British instead.
Exactly. But, you know, what can you say? There's that. We're going to have a little look from Bill Smith's point of view. So he's like, oh, I'm going to take the outside, and then it's like, there's a huge curb there. But thankfully, for Smitham, doesn't hit any barriers, so he is able to rejoin the race. And as you can see at the moment on that left-hand side timing tower, with all the incidents, he's still inside the top 15. Also had that incident for Bobby Love that we might get to see in a few moments' time, but it was, I can tell you from what I saw, was very similar to that one. John Morgan's off.
John
Morgan
from the podium position. He's off the track. Paul Stump goes through into that podium spot. John Morgan recovers here in fourth, but Gerhardus Jorrison is at speed right behind him, and Mike Grandy likewise. So Jorrison's got to think, am I close enough to have a dive here while John Morgan is still getting back up to pace? Morgan, I think, has just settled it, but he's dropped from that Mr. Consistent position on the podium where he's so often found. Now back into fourth, and Paul Stump goes to the podium spot.
And it is a bit of an attritional night tonight, but it was not a singular mistake from John Morgan. Contact with a back marker in that section, that really fast, high-speed section, cost him to spin around. So we might get a replay of this. This is Bobby Love, had it queued up, coming through this section, and I guess just misses his turning point. And Formula 3 cars, huge curbs, they don't like each other, and that is a wall.
Nope, so that's what the drama was in the end. The maneuver.
Yeah, like you say, the drama there with Bobby Love was going across that curbing and just having that small issue. Gerhardus Jorrison, you're watching. Again, up a few positions, up 5. And actually, with his consistency so far, has managed to outlast the likes of Addy, who was charging fast, and really has a realistic chance here of keeping onto the back of our friend John Morgan and maybe being able to make a charge for the podium. Addy making a move in the background, down the inside, just able to clear the nose, and he's back inside the top 10.
Yep, he makes that move. He's back inside of the top 10, but Alston and Payne, and now Russ Addy goes over the top of that as well. 3-car collision here. Oh, so bad to worse for Russ Addy as he arrives on the scene of a tangle between Ulf Olsen and what I think was probably John Payne, based on who was around and about there.
My word, this has been a chaotic race. Yeah, it looks like Olsen had contact with John Payne, who was desperate to make up positions, and Addy the innocent party as Payne tries to rejoin. I must say, Payne's rejoin from my replay looks a little bit bad, is what I'd say. But, you know, people make mistakes and move on with the day. I'm sure Addy won't hold any grudges. Live pictures at the moment are showing you what Randy Shoemaker's up to. He's just trying to chase down likes of the number 33 car of Peter Holstrom. So we're going to get a look at that John Morgan replay that we were watching before. As you can see, goes at the inside of this back mark and is thinking, well, he's going to back out of it, I'm going to turn in, and bang! Goes around, and unfortunately, potentially damaged the rear suspension of his car, but also a lot of time lost.
It's absolutely just one line through that chicane. It's basically flat out, but it is only one line. And he thought he was being given the corner, and apparently maybe not. And so that is messy in the end.
So maybe we'll get a big replay of that incident we saw before. Have a few viewers asking questions in the chat. See that David has responded, but 60+ drivers are definitely safe. Well, at least in the most part. I know this race isn't a great advert, potentially. However, normally we have some very, very, very close racing and without a lot of contact. But this circuit is a bit of a... I don't want to call it an oval, because it definitely isn't an oval. But it's had some characteristics that has just allowed for some really interesting issues.
This is Olsen and John Payne. Olsen has a wiggle, loses some speed. John Payne thinks he sees an opportunity. They tag each other. John Payne's slow, and then Russ Addy goes for a carnival ride.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think all of those drivers have now towed. They definitely have, and that that adds up our retirees to the race up to 5 as things currently stand, with at least 6 of those down a lap.
As from Addy's perspective, sees this kicking off in front. He's going through the corner. Where's the smoke? And then, oh, John Payne is there and slow on the line. And instant significant damage for Russ Addy, as evidenced by the angle of his hands and the car still going straight. It's lap 15 of 19. So 5 more to go for Greg Seitz, who took that pole position. Great opening lap. And from there, he's just consistently been a little bit quicker than everyone else, now leading 5 seconds over Ragnar Wisloff.
Yeah, the imperious Greg Seitz continues his reign over this field. Wisloff has tried to keep up as best as he can, but that gap has now stretched to over 5 seconds here this evening. Wisloff is putting along nicely, got a very nice lead to the car behind, and is in currently no threat whatsoever of losing his second place. Pole Stump is in a little bit of a fight, but that's actually a back marker. So if you look at the actual time board on the left, it's 6 seconds. So again, Stump's in a reasonably decent position. There is Morgan, who obviously had that collision with the back marker, but does sit inside your top 5 still, and again, pretty comfortable with the cars in front and behind him.
I'm always kind of
inside that top. Really, the battle here is for that 5th position. The 966 of Gahardis Jorgensen, who we said had a really good run up to that position, up 5 from his starting spot, is being chased by the man who's up 6 from the starting spot, Mike Grandy. And yeah, looking at the current lap times, it does look like Grandy is faster. 0.8 of a second last time around. And as I say that, I completely jinx him, and he locks up. Oh, wow, that's a really good view to have, actually. Showing you the last lap times of all your drivers. You can see at the top of the times, Seitz and Wisloff only split by 1/10 of a second, but that gap ever increasing. Whereas inside that top 5, Jorgensen was definitely slow last time out. Grandy is one of the quicker drivers on the circuit, and is really pushing to try and catch here. See if he can make that move with just a couple laps to go.
slightly older Haas livery there for Grandy. Here's Eugene Clark in behind Franz Josef Stum, 14th and 15th place. Half a second quicker last lap for Eugene Clark as he closes in on Stummy.
So a little battle here with the Valvoline car and Franz Josef Stum. Going to be close going on to this main straight. They're about to start their 17th lap. Leaders are already on that, but these guys are a little bit further behind. Got Clark then in the slipstream. You see how aggressive it is. Those few tenths of a second get a massive advantage, and Clark is up the inside down into turn number 1 and going to brake later and hopefully complete that move. With that rear shot there, some beautiful braking from Eugene Clark, and he is in to 14th position.
Yep, perfectly done. Textbook. That one, Eugene Clark going up another spot. And just in time too, as the leader Greg Seitz crosses the yard of bricks. 2 laps to go. Some other battles still to be decided in the final couple of laps of this race. Like Gahardis Jorgensen and Mike Grandy, like Peter Holstrom and Randy Shoemake, where we're watching right now.
Yeah, so this is one of the closer battles on the circuit at the moment. No fight for the top 10, but certainly fight for the top 9. You don't often hear people go, oh, I want a top 9, but these two drivers are definitely going to fight for their top 9 here in this race. Couple laps left. 0.5 of a second is the margin between Shoemake and Holstrom as they start those 2 laps to go. As you can see, at this point in time, that slipstream isn't too big of an effect, but as he gets closer, it picks up But there they go, he's out of distance. So he's going to have to close up a little bit closer if he wants an opportunity of making a pass. And with that slightly better line through turn 1 and 2, he has made that gap. So much a little bit smaller.
And he'll still have 2 more opportunities, as they've started 2 laps to go when they cross the line there. It's the leader who's about to take the white flag, Greg Seitz, with a 6.5 second lead. Randy Shoemake still just sort of 1 car length too far back to really take advantage of that slipstream like you've explained.
Yeah, and he's just a little deep there and a little wide through these sections. So unfortunately, a little bit of cautiousness there has cost that gap to open up by 0.4 of a second. Unless a little bit of a disastrous run for Hallstrom, he's not going to have a chance next time by. Shows how easy those gaps can swing and to and fro, and how important it is to make that move and make that challenge for the lead when you have the chance. You're watching your race leader by 6 seconds here this evening. He has been fantastic in this first race, with only 1 sector left to go in this Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Certainly looking good for the win.
It's been all perfection so far in race number 1 for Greg Seitz. A little bit of traffic for him in these final couple of corners shouldn't be too much of a problem with the buffer that he's built up for himself of 6 seconds. Looks like Douglas Beasley in green just in front of him might actually end up going a lap down. The checkered flag waves at the yard of bricks, and Greg Seitz takes the win at Indianapolis road course for race 1 or 2, 60+ racing adventures. Seitz the winner.
This is your battle. Randy Shoemake just really trying to push through that S's section, and unfortunately just isn't quite able to keep the car in check. So that battle looks pretty done and dusted. Wisloff is your second place finisher, followed by Stump, who's crossed the line to secure his podium. And as you can see, the rest of the names coming through on the timing tower, finishing this race. And Leif Hellberg is almost close enough to get Barry Hills.
Certainly some cars that are close as they take the checkered flag at the end of lap 19. And then behind them, Bruce Poole also under a little bit of pressure towards the end. From Eugene Clark, and they're some of the last cars on the lead lap. Richard Coulom's one of the last cars on the lead lap, but he's helping them out with some of the infield mowing there, as he's had a little bit of a whoopsies, but won't lose anything from it because he was the last car on the lead lap. The car for position behind him, Douglas Beasley, went down that lap to Greg Seitz right at the end. Looking at the results from race 1, Greg Seitz the winner by 6 seconds. Paul Stump inheriting that podium after John Morgan spun off. And then Gerhardus Jorrison, Mike Grandy, Barry Hills, Leif Hellberg, Peter Hallstrom and Randy Shoemake. He's the top 10. Then Ulf Olsen, Bill Smitham, Bruce Poole, Eugene Clark. Yeah, and Franz Josef Stum, Richard Coulomb, Douglas Beasley, David Bradley apparently on the lead lap there. Wonder if anyone actually crossed the line with a slowdown or anything. Those numbers don't quite add up, but definitely JC Hay, Mike McCormick a lap down. John Payne and Russ Addy had a collision, both sustained some damage and retired, and Bobby Love, Earl Setzer, Jerry Kerr, Greg Gilman likewise as well. A few more retirements from race number 1. But all 26 drivers started, and they've still got one more race to run from Indianapolis. We'll check if we've got any drivers who want to speak to us after race 1.
We do have a couple of drivers that are in the waiting room for us to speak to. We've got Seitz and Wisloff, ever the favourites of coming in and having a chat to us. And when we are ready, pull one of those in. So if we just have a look. So I assume we're ready. Are we, Iku? Yes, so. I assume so. We'll pull in Greg Seitz. Hello, Greg. Well done
Hello.
on your win here this evening. 6 seconds the margin at the line. Wislov kept you pretty honest on a lap-by-lap basis, but you just consistency'd him to death. Talk to us a little bit about this circuit and what challenges it provides to the drivers.
It's a pretty fun circuit. It's very flat in the infield section, so you have to just kind of watch. You have to hit your marks and be pretty precise. There are some areas where you can kind of get on the throttle right at the apex, and it takes it right out to the edge. And so, yeah, you just have to watch that a little bit. But I like it. I like the little S's where it switches back. That gives you a nice little workout. And again, it's you kind of have to kind of be precise through there. So yeah, I enjoyed the track. It's fun, and yeah, we've done it before in the PM18. This is the first time I've ever done it in this car, but yeah, I thought it handled it pretty well.
Certainly looked pretty chaotic out there. Very, very interesting race. A lot of drivers having incidents. You like to do a little bit of a from the back in race number 2, especially when we've got a broadcast on. Can we expect that race number 2 for you?
I'm not sure I'll start all the way from the back. I don't want to give it away to Ragnar, but I'll probably start, 5 or 6 spots back. We'll see how it goes because, yeah, you could lose a lot of time at the beginning of the race, and it'd be really hard to make that up on him.
Certainly be interesting to see. We wish you good luck for race number 2, and congrats on your race number 1 win.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So, I feel like David can have a little chat to our favourite boat specialist. So, when you're ready, David, we're going to have a little chat to Ragnar Wislov.
Well done. Congrats.
Yep, Captain Ragnar joins us, second place, and very, very close in qualifying. Greg just had you matched in the race pace.
Yeah. Yes, he's like a metronome, isn't he? He's just pumping out when he needs to. Then he was slacking off a little bit. So, I don't know. I don't really like this track too much. It's so flat, and I felt a little bit like I was back in the PM18 because it's quite slippery. The car feels different from many of the other tracks. You're sliding, you're slipping. The rears become really hot at the end, so you need to watch a little bit the back, and it becomes a little lively at the end.
Yeah, of course, we're just into only the first season of this new car. Still a learning curve for all, I assume.
Yes, I think this car is more fun to drive. It has a little less horsepower, but a lot more downforce and grip, typically. So I think it's more fun to drive this car. But everything is different about it. So I guess a little bit of time to settle into it will be needed by everyone. But I think the league has adjusted quite well to it. The PM18, we ran that for a long time, so people were used to it. But I think many people were pleasantly surprised by how easy it is to drive the Formula 3 car.
And Ragnar, we're seeing a new livery for the first time, this Team Vikings livery. When you get out there on your boat, surely you have to fight that irresistible urge to try to raid the north of England.
Yes. It was a few years ago when the urge was impossible to resist. I think today we are a little bit more civilized, but we still cherish the Viking age. So,
or maybe there's nothing of value left in the north to take.
Hang on a second. Hang on. I live in the north. That's not on.
Don't anger him. Don't anger him. Be nice. No, the Team Vikings is actually one of the old Scandinavian teams. It has team members from all of the Scandinavian countries. It's a little less active than it used to be, and so they accept people like me. In the old days, it was only people like Greg, but now they also accept normal people. So it's nice to be part of a good team with an ambiance. We're going to do the Daytona 24 hours this coming weekend in GT3, and it's nice to to be a group.
Well, that'll be exciting. We wish you the best of luck for that race and also race number 2 coming up, and we'll see you again in a bit.
Don't know about that, but I'll try to do as much as I can, and we'll see where we end up. Thank you.
See ya. Go, great to hear from first and second after race number 1 of 60 Plus Racing Adventure.
Sorry, yeah, it was great to hear from our two people there. David's mic just cutting out, but yeah, it was great to hear from both of our drivers there. And yeah, I think we head to a little break, and we'll be back with race number 2. Please join us in just a few moments.
Game now, me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way, you wasn't invited. Say you come to play, I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me, then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Game now, me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way, you wasn't invited. Say you come to play, I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me, then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
Back now for the second of two races, 60-plus racing adventures, round 6 of the season from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Greg Seitz took the race win in race number 1, but he likes to set himself a little bit of a challenge. Where's he going to start on the grid for race number 2? Let's take a look. So the front row for race number 2 will be Ragnar Wisloff and John Morgan. Then Mike McCormick and Russ Addy will have reason to be pleased with that qualifying performance from race 2, because race 1 was a bit difficult for him as he started too deep in the field to stay away from the trouble. Paul Stump and Greg Seitz there on row number 3, so Seitz will be starting at a 6th place. Then Gerhardus Jorrison and Barry Hills, the teammates, starting 7th and 8th. Leif Hellberg and Mike Grandy 9th and 10th. Then Bill Smitham and Greg Gilman. Got Ulf Olsen, Eugene Clark, Peter Holstrom, Richard Coulomb, Randy Shoemake and Bruce Poole to 18th place. Bobby Love, Earl Seltzer, JC Hay, Franz Josef Sturm, Douglas Beasley and David Bradley are the rest of the field. David Haynes here with Will Chadwick and our producer Iku Merakala. What are we expecting might go different in race number 2, Will?
Well, I think we could see a good battle for the lead. I just feel like obviously Seitz is going to get forward, and then I think he's going to give Ragnar a really good run for his money.
If you want to follow along with the live timing today, it's timing.racespot.tv. And it will be an interesting 19 laps of Indianapolis Motor Speedway for this race number 2, no doubt. They'll have learned which curbs they have to stay off, and maybe where some of the trouble spots were in race number 1 as well.
Indeed, they will. I mean, obviously they've all learned a little bit from the first little experience. And it's going to be interesting going into this race, because I think we're going to have an upset on our hands, hopefully.
Interesting call from Will Chadwick.
I'm always one for the interesting calls. Why don't we have a bit of spice, bit of action? Looking forward to this one. We've got another 19 laps. An hour 40 this time on this time. I don't think that's going to matter. And yeah, I mean, who else do you see causing an upset? Obviously, Addy's qualified a lot better this time.
And Russ Addy can be mighty strong. He's starting on that 2nd row now, so can show the speed without needing to yo-yo through the field quite as much. Hopefully, not get any damage. Mike Grandy was pretty quick in race number 1 at times.
That's very true. He was quick at times in that a little bit of an older Haas livery, and starting from 10th position is certainly in a spot where he can maybe make some moves.
They're most of the way around this formation lap before we'll get racing.
Going to be interesting.
Very generous with how full the grandstands are for 60-plus racing adventures on the road course. Sure, they fill all those seats for the 500, but I don't think even IndyCar or NASCAR managed to fill that many seats for road racing here.
Who knows? I think 60-plus racing adventures is a really popular and sought-after series here at Indianapolis.
The pace car is in. The leader makes them wait for a second, but he's going to get going pretty early through the final corner. Ragnar Wisloff will lead them to the green flag to start 19 laps of 60-plus racing adventures from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They're side by side for that row behind, and Russ Addy's had a good start there. He's looking, do I shoot down the middle? Do I shoot for the inside? Besides, he's going to brake just a little bit early. Cold tyres, low pressures for everyone still. Need to be careful on this opening lap.
Yeah, certainly you have to be careful on those cold tyres. These tyres get better across the stint. Jorrison going a little bit wide there in the background. It looks like he'll be side by side through the S's section with Greg Seitz. Jorrison does concede in the end, but might have a run back on the following straight. Certainly a bit of a trouble start for Seitz, having to defend a bit more than you think he'd normally have to. Certainly costing him time in the race for the lead. Oh,
3 wide, a little bit of contact here. Everyone managing to get away with it. Mike Grandy ended up in a very difficult and compromised spot, and the teammates almost tangled there. Anglo-Racing, Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorrison. Here's Randy Shoemake working his way through the opening lap. The rest of the drivers likewise still finding their confidence and temperatures and pressures.
certainly finding the confidence by breaking markers. Do not
Oh,
forget.
except Ulf Olsen.
Oh no, Olsen had issues in that first race. Looks like he's had some issues again. That's really unfortunate, and potentially he's lost some form of wing, or maybe that's another car.
Someone's lost something, but Ulf Olsen might have lost his braking marker there. Bill Smitham with some damage potentially. At the end of the first lap, Ragnar Wisloff still leads them 2.5 seconds clear of John Morgan. Bit of a train forming there with Russ Addy having gained a position on Mike McCormick, Greg Seitz having gained a position on Paul Stump on the opening lap so far.
Yeah, so you can have a look at that timing tower on the left-hand side. John Morgan, who obviously had that really unfortunate coming together with the back marker, kicks him out of podium contention in the first race this evening, but sitting pretty in second as things stands. A lovely start, though, from Ragnar Wisloff. Nearly 3 seconds ahead of the rest of your field, and if you're looking how far Seitz is back now, like, seriously, if Seitz isn't able to make his way forward soon, you know, we consider the winning margin last time pretty big at 6 seconds, but the gap's already 4.7.
Side by side with Mike McCormick, and now up into 4th place as he goes down the inside. Greg Seitz now into 4th position, but 5 seconds away from the race lead. Got Addy and Morgan in front of him next. Biggest mover so far in the race. Richard Coulomb is 4 positions gained into 12th. They're all still very, very tightly packed in these opening laps.
Wisloff then takes that fastest lap on your first proper flying lap around. Of course, these tyres getting better and better by the second here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. This iteration of the road course is quite interesting, really. You see, one of your picks for making some good moves. It's having a little go there. It looks like Greg Grillman and Eugene Clark have been fighting in the background as well down into turn number 1.
It's all happening for sure. Watching from a little bit of Randy Shoemake perspective and the quick, nimble change of direction these cars are capable of through that S's section. They are not super powerful, but they are very light, very nimble machines, the Dallara F3.
They definitely are. But like you say, it's one of those instances where it's just about getting your feet, finding your feet, and speaking to people that are finding their feet, Seitz here on lap number 3, going on to 4. It's already nearly 5 seconds back from the lead. If you think about, cast your mind back to the start of that race, he made a good second of that advantage that he won that last race at the start. So by my money, unless Seitz is able to pick up a bit more pace, this could be incredibly close.
Very, very interesting. Looking at the replay here for Ulf Olsen, this was on the opening lap. And yep, no, he just doesn't slow down early enough, and there's a pack in front of him. I think he's just missed the braking marker by 50 feet, or I'm pretty sure the braking markers are in feet here. They sort of go 300, 200, 100.
Yeah, I'd assume so, considering we're in America. You're watching Greg Seitz down the inside of Russ Addy, making a lovely manoeuvre into that 90-degree left-hander. Not sure of the corner number because I don't have the track map to hand. But Seitz done a great job of getting into those podium positions, and his next target now is John Morgan. Morgan unlikely to throw up much of a fight, but as you can see, he really is not making inroads on Ragnar Wisloff as things currently stand.
Using all the road through these sequence of corners to just open up the entry of every corner, carry as much speed, flow the momentum in a car that doesn't have a whole lot of horsepower but does have a whole lot of grip, and carry as much speed as possible onto the pit straight. Start to close into that slipstream if you can and use it to all the advantage possible. Greg Seitz holding down the fastest lap of the race at the moment. It wasn't the one he just completed though, as he had to make that pass on Russ Addy, but he does have some pace when he needs it. Greg Seitz. He's going to need all of it to try to hunt down Ragnar Wisloff if the win and the sweep of Indianapolis is going to be possible. He's got a bit wide, a bit of grass, and had a bit of a wiggle there.
Yeah, a little bit of a wiggle as he gets onto the power. Looks like he is he's trying to size up John Morgan. Of course, it's really interesting because we only saw a gap of 0.2 of a second, if you cast your mind back to practice, between the likes of Addy and Wisloff. That first opening practice that we saw this evening. We didn't quite catch it on live pictures, but me and David certainly did see the results of it. And it does beg the question, does Seitz have the pace here to be able to hunt down Wisloff? It's certainly going to be interesting going to the race.
Gain all the road through the penultimate corner, absolutely flat out, no matter the tyre condition through the final corner in a car like this. Cars need to be a little bit more careful. If they've got way more horsepower and less grip, it's not flat out through the final corner, but it is in an F3 car and just into that sort of 2 car lengths back window where the slipstream is so powerful, almost at the rev limiter into turn number 1. Down the inside, Greg Seitz takes second place. 4 positions gained in the opening 5 laps of this race for Greg Seitz, and now he's 4.7 seconds behind Ragnar Wisloff with his sights set forward.
Definitely so. Nice little analogy there. Looking like Smitham maybe had an issue in the background, at least lost a few positions. Yeah, it looks like Bill Smitham is off at turn number 1, unfortunately, maybe getting tapped round in an attempted overtaking manoeuvre from someone he was battling closely with, and he rejoins in 22nd position near David Bradley. Here is your second place man, Greg Seitz, current holder of the fastest lap that he set on lap number 3. Able to take a couple tenths of advantage out of Ragnar Wisloff this lap so far. We really need to push it in order to catch Ragnar Wisloff this race. You know, we've only got 13 laps to go, 4-second advantage. That's about 3.5 tenths a lap that he needs to do consistently to catch Wisloff at this stage.
It looks like it is push, hammer time at the moment for Greg Seitz as well. So that lap there, a 1:19.7, gains 0.3 on Ragnar Wisloff, including having passed John Morgan in towards turn number 1. So this will be the first fully clear flying lap of the race for Greg Seitz, and we'll see what he's got and if Ragnar Wisloff can respond in any way. And still 13 laps to go as well. I would get a bit nervous in Ragnar Wisloff's position, but I'm not Ragnar Wisloff.
Yes, certainly not, but you never know. Maybe one day, David, you can be our very own Australian Ragnar Wisloff. You'll need a boat for that one, though. Seitz, again, going through this very technical S's section, I always find it just a little bit too tight to feel very flowing. It's quite a tight S's section. You really need to be precise and slow the car down, no matter what machinery you're in order to get the best line there through possible. And we're going to have a little look at the replay from the 255 car of Bill Smitham. Looks like he's actually going to be going for a move here on what looks to be Shoemake, I believe.
Perhaps?
Yeah.
Ooh, he's in way hot, and instead of hitting Gilman, he locks it up and spins it around.
At least he didn't collect anyone. Very, very kind of him. But obviously a small mistake on just braking a little bit too late. And like you say, that can cost you. Seitz, last time around, actually lost time to Ragnar Wisloff.
Yeah, not a perfect lap for Greg Seitz, and Ragnar Wisloff found a little bit extra to set his personal best. So it absolutely hangs by a thread, hangs in the balance at the moment. Wisloff able to respond, and Greg Seitz might have just had a little error somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was coming through turn number 3, very wide out, and it looks like he lost quite a bit of time just trying to carry that bit too much speed. There could be a sense of urgency here. You know, Seitz obviously knows how much he won the last race by, and I'm sure that thinking that is pretty close, you know, it's going to be pretty close. We're watching a little battle here on your screens. JC Hay, like he's fighting with, I believe, Bill Smitham,
who's going to go around for the second time. Got checked up behind at the apex there and lost the rear, and he's across the grass and trying to get his race going again.
Fortunately, it looks like a race to forget for Bill Smitham. 2 spins and just a small amount of contact to the rear there of JC Hay, and that just spun him around, taking all of that aero load off on taking all that aero load into unbalance as he gets close to the car behind. And yeah, just caused him to spin, unfortunately. We're going to get a replay of that first incident of when he was looking to make a move on Randy Shoemaker. Let's have a look here. So actually, yeah, like you say, down the inside. So this was actually the incident where we saw him spin. As picked out by our producer. So had a nice move down the inside. It's going to be on the outside for corner number 2. Very close on the exit. As you can see, at this point, he's just a bit too close, and he tries to break out of it, but unfortunately just tags the rear.
Last lap was the fastest lap of the race for Greg Seitz at 1:19.2, and he took back some of that time from Ragnar Wisloff. It's on now if Seitz can consistently produce that kind of speed. 3.5 seconds behind, still 10 laps. The leader's not yet catching any traffic, but you can't rule it out. It is a pretty short lap, all things considered, around here on the road course. It's 2.2 miles, 3 point something kilometers, whereas I believe the Daytona International Speedway road course sits something a bit closer to 5.5 kilometers. That's as far as trying to squeeze a road course inside of a 2.5 mile oval. Daytona manages to pack a little bit more.
Yeah, certainly in distance, coming up at 3.93 kilometers here at Indianapolis road course. And but it's an interesting circuit, certainly since they've removed that old technical section and introduced that really fast chicane.
Here's Richard Coulomb, Greg Gilman. Coulomb braking a lot earlier. Randy Shoemaker, Bruce Poole and Peter Holstrom just behind as well. So a 5-way fight here over 12th place at the moment. And there's Bobby Love, El Setzer, Franz Josef Sturm as well. So a few drivers who got taken out or had problems in race number 1, able to fight on here in race number 2. And that's what's great about it. Setzer shallow on the way in, wide on the way out, hurting his momentum. It looks like Franz Josef Sturm might have an opportunity to strike here.
Definitely got a chance. Going to look to the inside of Earl Setzer, onto the brakes. Really nice braking. Gets ahead by the apex. Clouters a bit of the curb, but he's able to make the move pretty comfortably and go up into 18th position.
Got gained. Big BMW roundel on the nose. I'm not sure if BMW ever made engines for this generation of F3 car, but there was Volkswagens and Hondas and Toyotas and Mercedes branded F3 engines back in this era.
You're certainly correct. There was definitely a lot of engines put into those F3 cars in the really cool side pod era is what I'd call it. Of course, this car is pretty old for iRacing terms, and I think a lot of people expect to see a new F3 car sometime in the future, especially with the new partnership with the FIA. But yeah, like you say, it's a classic car, and it really does embody the essence of junior single-seater racing.
It's this is the Dallara F312, which was an evolution of the F307, and they're still raced with now a halo added in Formula 3 Euro Cup or Regional Formula Open or whatever on earth it's called now. So this chassis has been around a long time, and many junior drivers have worked their way through it. There's Gilman, though, losing a position to Richard Coulomb, and you've still got Randy Shoemaker and Bruce Poole in close company behind. Gilman looks to strike back. He's not that brave, but they're going to run wide. Both of them are going to run wide. Here comes Randy Shoemaker, and he gets tagged as well.
Oh dear, it looks like Richard Coulomb as well, caught up in that. And unfortunately, just a little bit of an incident there. Sure, we'll get a replay to have a look at it from another angle, but unfortunate to see. And more moves here. Randy Shoemaker looks like he's going to have Gilman down the inside into turn number 1. It's going to be another position loss for Shoemaker's. Poole comes past as well.
Looking for 2 for 1. Bruce Poole is going to get it. He gets past 3 drivers in as many corners with a really great couple of moves, and also managing to just drive through the smoke as it was. And yeah, Ulf Olsen, JC Hay, they're on the pit lane. Randy Shoemake's losing a bit more time as well, and Richard Coulomb hasn't even made his way to the pit lane because he's got no front wing. Here's how that happened. He went in deep, he got the grass, he spun around, and he loses the front wing to the rear wheel of Randy Shoemake.
Yeah, and that's pretty much race over at that point. You have to dive into the pit lane. And unfortunately, he just about missed it that time by. So it's a full lap without the nose. That's going to cost you a lot of time round this rather short, but very high speed Indianapolis circuit.
How about race leader watch, though, because it's down to 1.5 seconds. Greg Seitz has made some great inroads against Ragnar Wisloff, and there's still plenty of time left in this race. There they are, first and second, with 7 laps to go. Ragnar Wisloff doesn't have much left in his bank account.
Certainly needed to make sure that he got the hammer down, and that is what Seitz did, banging in some fantastic lap times across the course of the last 5 or so laps, and has really worked on that advantage. You know, with 10 to go, we saw it at 3.5 seconds, and with 5 to go, or just coming to 5 to go, it's nearly under a second.
I hear Jaws music. I hear royalty-free Jaws music.
I won't try and do that, but yes, absolutely. You think in the mind of Wisloff, he's going to be kind of looking a little bit in his mirrors right now. He knows what that gap is, and it's going to be adding the pressure. Wisloff, a seasoned winner here in this series, in season 29 of 60+ Racing Adventures. And although he's got that much experience, he will feel the pressure, believe you me.
So for the win in the second race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's the Viking versus the fighter pilot. We're on board with USAF captain Greg Seitz, and he's within 1 second now. He pulled 4/10 on the last lap. Maybe starting to feel just a tiny hint of the slipstream from this distance.
Certainly starting to get a little bit of toe. It will start to get really powerful as Seitz approaches 4/10 of a second. Very committed through those high-speed corners. Of course, going to be start to get a little bit of a disadvantage here from the dirt here, but from this distance, it's not too bad. And as we get into the slower sections of this lap, the gap only seems to close.
Feeling like a matter of time now, backwards from Wisloff to his pursuer in second place. Both of them pulling away from John Morgan, trying to hold on to a podium here in race number 2. Sad in fourth place, not able to catch him a whole lot. How about the braking in towards turn 1? The Concertina effect certainly makes it look like Greg Seitz gains a bit of time there.
Yeah, and so would the scoreboard on the left-hand side. 1/10 of a second or so gained this lap so far as they start the next run down the longest straight on this circuit. Going to have a little bit of an effect from the toe there. You can see on the timing tower that it's not really that powerful from this distance, despite the fact of them being fairly close together. And certainly Seitz is going to need to close that that gap up a little bit more before getting some real powerful toe effect.
Certainly looks mighty close, first and second place. And where does Seitz think about trying to make the move? How much does Wisloff attempt to defend it as well? Questions yet to be answered with 4 laps to go. Just 4 more laps of racing. Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think Seitz has arrived just at the right time. He hasn't hurried himself, but he's got time to work with here now. 4 laps to try to make a pass for the lead.
Is going to have a chance down into turn number 1. May have a small chance, providing a really good opening section on the back straight. However, don't think he's close enough, and we've got some back markers or some people that have had issues, the likes of Randy Shoemake, who we saw have an issue earlier on, just in the distance and could throw a little bit of a spanner in the works here. Seitz will not have a chance this time by to make the move, and that only diminishes the time that he has in order to make a successful pass for the lead.
Good look at the live gap, seeing just that little bit of time you gain for free with the slipstream, but you still need to be precise through these sequences of corners in order to stay close through the corners and then have that same opportunity down the next straight. Thinking about that traffic shortly. There's, by my count, 5 battles taking place through the field at the moment. There's this. There's McCormick and Paul Stump for 5th. Randy Shoemake heads to pit entry and pulls out of the way of the lead battle. There's Gahadis Yorison versus Mike Grandy. There's Greg Gilman getting past Bruce Poole. And there's also Bobby Love fighting Earl Setzer. Looks like Peter Holstrom might be catching these two as well. So everywhere, all through the field, great racing to see out the round. And Ragnar Wisloff is going to defend the inside into turn number 1 as Greg Seitz gets mighty, mighty close at the start of lap 17.
Yeah, makes Wisloff defend. That's always a good sign. If you're the aggressive car, you want them to defend for you. And he closes massively up to the back of Wisloff. He's going to be just 0.2 of a second back from the likes of Wisloff. He will have a chance into the next corner. He darts towards the inside. Wisloff defends, comes across. Seitz is going to try and open up the corner and go round the outside. However, Wisloff gets a slightly better run. He will leave room on the inside for Seitz. Seitz unable to make the move.
Oh, it's very, very exciting now. Wisloff doing all the right stuff here at the moment and giving Greg Seitz enough space as well. Definitely gave Greg Seitz a little more space than I might have been tempted to. It's just 0.2 of a second between them. And Wisloff feeling the pressure, only needs to hold on for 2 more laps now, but look how close Seitz is. It's flat out from here all the way to the braking zone of turn 1. The slipstream is going to do it, so Wisloff's got to decide where to defend, and it's all the way up against the concrete pit wall for the inside, crossing the yard of bricks there. Seitz with more kilometers an hour for a long run down towards the braking zone. He's got to go round the outside if he's going to make this move work, and Wisloff's not going to let him do that.
Fantastic efficiency on the braking there from Ragnar Wisloff. That truly kept him ahead in this sequence of corners, but he is on the defensive. He will have to defend again as we go down the back straight. Also second to last time.
Still hard up against the inside for Ragnar Wisloff. Wheels almost banging, heading down towards the braking zone into the chicane. Seitz is ahead. He's round the outside. He's got to hold his ground this time, and he does it more effectively against Wisloff. But he's going to be able to come across, take the race lead. Greg Seitz from around the outside with 2 laps to go, taking the lead off of Ragnar Wisloff, who still has plenty of smarts, plenty of racecraft, and in the slipstream could still fight back. Even if Greg Seitz has been the quicker driver, now the shoe's on the other foot, and that slipstream can do a lot of work.
Certainly can, but he needs to be close. He's dropped back a little bit. He will still have maybe a run down to turn number 1, but certainly not as powerful as the lap previous for his counterparty. He's going to have a good toe going down to turn 1. As you can see, catching. We're on the final lap. Can he make a move? He's going to make Seitz defend into turn number 1.
White flag at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Wisloff's trying to fight back. Greg Seitz just parked himself in the middle of the road there. Wisloff couldn't do anything about it. There's only really one opportunity to strike back, and it's to get the perfect run off this corner through the chicane and down the back straight. But Wisloff, I think, is just 1 car length too far back to make this work. It's half a second, not the 0.2 that he needed to be. Greg Seitz is going to try to hold on to make it a clean sweep at IMS. And he's so precise through these S's here. 4 consecutive apexes, just 1 curb to the next, Absolutely perfect form.
He's just not close enough. Seitz has fended off the likes of Wisloff. Well, he has overtook Wisloff with a few laps to go. Into the final section now.
And no worries of traffic whatsoever, just to get this corner perfect. And Greg Seitz will have done it from 6th to the race lead to take 2 from 2 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The checkered flag waiting at the finish line at the yard of bricks, and it's 2 from 2. Greg Seitz at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, another win in 60+ racing adventures. Wisloff on the podium for another time. John Morgan on the podium again as well. Russ Addy's going to have 4th and Paul Stump in 5th, but there's plenty of other battles to the end here. Hellberg holding off Yoriston. Looks like Grandy trying to hold off McCormick in a 2-mic fight. Bruce Poole and Peter Holstrom here, and also Douglas Beasley and Bill Smitham elsewhere through the field. That's what the drivers and the community of 60 Plus Racing Adventures love. Everyone finds someone who's give or take their speed that they can fight and have a great race, even if it's not Greg Seitz and Ragnar Wisloff for the win. This might be for 18th and 19th, but it sure looks like good fun. Beasley, that short line through the final corner to the finish line to hold off Bill Smitham by another small little margin there, about 3/10 in that fight. Last car to see the checkered flag will be David Bradley.
Fantastic race there, and a fantastic battle for the lead at the end. Makes me cast my mind back to the season close of last season.
So having a look there, Greg Seitz timing it all to perfection, taking that race lead, 2 laps to go, holding off on the final lap, half a second ahead of Ragnar Wisloff. John Morgan on the podium in race 2. Then Russ Addy, Paul Stump, Leif Hellberg, Gerhardus Jorrison, Mike Grandy, Mike McCormick, and Barry Hills as a top 10. Eugene Clark and Greg Gilman 11th and 12th. And then Bruce Poole, Peter Hallstrom, Franz Josef Stum, Bobby Love, Earl Setzer, Douglas Beasley, Bill Smitham, and David Bradley. It looks like the biggest mover of the race was Franz Josef Stum, 7 positions gained to that 15th. And then Randy Shoemake 3 laps down, Richard Coulomb 7 laps down, JC Hay 9 laps down, and Ulf Olsen, well, from the very first lap, kind of came undone from him in this race number 2.
So, looks like we're going to have the chance to go and have a chat to a few of our drivers. The first person I want to talk to, I think, is going to be John Morgan. So, we're going to get John Morgan into the chat and we'll have a little talk to him.
It's going to be tough.
I tried the wrong person. John, thought I'd speak to you first. Congratulations on the podium. Very interesting circuit, this one. Again, one of those road courses that is baked within inside an oval, a legendary oval that is. What were the challenges of this circuit for you this evening, and how do you feel like your races went?
Both of them went pretty well. The circuit is, we were talking about it in practice. It's amazing, but you have to be so on the edge all the way around this track. There's like no place where you can sort of just, drive through it and maintain any kind of speed. Everything is on the edge. The car's, moving around a lot, but it's a lot of fun. It's hard to pass on, but it's a lot of fun to race on.
Yeah. So we saw that small incident that you had in race number 1. Of course, you thought you had the car clear, and I would certainly think so on your behalf. Talk us how it's like to come back from such disappointment of not being able to finish on the podium. We know you like a podium. You often manage to squeeze one out. Talk us how you refocused your mind into the second race and was able to secure that podium.
Well, just keeping in mind the championship, and I just tried to get back on track as quick as I could on that straightaway to see if there was any damage. And amazingly enough, the car was as good after the incident as it was before, and I had Gerhardus pretty close. So I just really didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it. I just had to put my head down and try to cap him a little bit, which I was lucky to do, and sort of hang on to 4th. So it was good points for me in the 70 plus championship, and it was a good result.
Looking forward to future rounds. Of course, we're at the halfway point of the season. 6 more rounds to go. What's a particular favourite track coming up for yourself?
Mugello, because we haven't raced there, and we raced it in GT3 cars earlier in the season, and it's just a fun track. It's lots of places to pass, place where you can have a variety of lines. Unlike here, it's just pretty much one line around this track. yeah, I'm looking forward to Mugello.
Absolutely, a very, very fantastic circuit in the hills of Tuscany in Italy. Well, we hope you have a good rest of your season. We'll see you at the season finale, hopefully in the commentary booth once again, and congratulations on your 3rd place in race number 2.
Thank you very much, sir.
I think it's time for David to talk to Greg Seitz this time, so drag Greg in and let David have a word to him.
Yeah, checks out, Will. Greg Seitz joins us with that clean sweep.
Yeah, hi, David. That was fun.
It certainly looked it. There was a couple of times where the gap, as you were trying to hunt down Ragnar Wisloff, sort of yo-yoed a little bit sometimes, not making a whole lot of progress some laps, making a lot of progress in getting there with just sort of 4 laps to go, the right amount of time to have a solid little battle.
Yeah, I think there was at least one lap where I made a mistake, and I'm like, oh boy, I can't afford to make any mistakes if I'm going to be able to catch him. When I got clear of everybody else, he, by that point, had almost a 5-second lead, I think. And I'm like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to catch him. So I was really trying to push it to the limit. And then, like I said, I think I made a mistake on one lap, but all the others, I think I did okay on. But yeah, it was very challenging to try to run him down there. And then I knew it wasn't going to be an easy pass when I got there.
No, he had his defensive pants on for sure. Took you a couple of goes, but it was just enough momentum to be able to get around the outside in the end.
Yeah, and he raced me very fair, so I knew I could kind of, sometimes you're worried about taking the outside line against somebody that they're going to run it deep and kind of push you off track. But, I knew he would give me the space, to provide a fair battle there, and he did. And it made it, very fun and very challenging.
I've watched enough IndyCar to know that those guys wouldn't try around the outside like that in that part of the track.
Yeah, well, it worked here.
I suspect Ragnar Wisloff is a little more respectful than some of them for sure. You take the clean sweep, you extend your championship lead. I'll go ahead and jinx it for you. Back to back could be on the cards.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying for. I mean, he's putting up a really good battle this season. I think, mostly it's been him and I this season. So I think last season we had a few more players in there, but he's been right up there every race, and he's depending on the track, like he's really strong. So yeah, I'm not taking anything for granted.
Best of luck with the rest of the races, and we'll see you for the season finale.
Alrighty, thanks.
Double race winner Greg Seitz joins us, and that means there's only one man left for William Chadwick, be Ragnar Wisloff.
My favourite person from Norway. How are you doing, Ragnar? We saw, obviously, it's gutting to lose it at the line, but you really gave it a good fight, and maybe some things learned going into the second half of the season, which can hopefully help you on your way.
Maybe it was, it's it's disconcerting. I think 13 laps to go, and Greg was 5 seconds behind, and I computed half a second per lap. No, this just doesn't work. We're gonna have to fight at the end, and it worked out exactly like that. But it's always good fun to fight with Greg. He's very fair. He doesn't intimidate. He gives you space. It's like it should be. So it was okay for a couple of laps, but he's just too quick, and well, I just had to give him that. It's a familiar story by now, unfortunately.
So,
yeah,
going forward into the rest of the season, what is a track you look forward to? What is a venue you think you can maybe cause some upsets?
I haven't looked. Is Rudskogen there? No, it's not. But I think what will be fun, and actually, Will, I watched you taking the Audi for the first spin around Mugello, and I thought that was an interesting video. So I think that will be an interesting track to run the F3. So that should be good fun. New track, very, very technical. Should be some passing opportunities. I'm looking forward to that.
Certainly a very interesting track, and I very much enjoyed it when I drove the Audi round there. I think it's a fantastic new addition to the service. So we also had that answer from John Morgan, so it looks like Mugello is the favourite. Perhaps we should get it on a live broadcast next season. But going forward, any boating plans coming forward for the summer?
Well, we had 50 centimeters of snow today.
You can't do a boat in that much snow.
No, and there's a lot of ice on the fjord, so no plans. But we're looking forward to the season. We've just ordered a new sail, and we hope that it will be a good summer. If it's a strong winter, it should be a good summer. Don't you think there should be some balance there?
I would certainly hope so. We had some snow recently as well, and it's been pretty wild. Well, we hope that new sail takes you to record-setting speeds of knots on the open fjords of Norway. And thank you very much for joining us once again, and we wish you the best of luck for the remaining 6 rounds.
Thanks, guys, and good luck to you in Daytona 24 as well. I'm sure you're going to run.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
I love him so much, man.
I wonder if he knows that a cat completed the Sydney to Hobart yacht race for the first time this year. Be interesting to know. This is what's coming up for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. They're going to Mugello, Imola, Sebring, Zandvoort and Alton Park, and we'll see them again for the season finale at Interlagos, February 28th. It's a great championship in a unique little niche of older drivers on iRacing. Certainly something different, but they have great racing nonetheless. Today, a perfect example of that. I've been David Haynes with William Chadwick and our producer Iku Metakala. We look forward to seeing you next month at Interlagos. Can Greg Seitz go back-to-back championships in 60 Plus Racing Adventures?